Welcome back to the FTN preview series sponsored by Boom Fantasy. I'm your host, Mike Randle. Follow me on X at Randle Rand. You know the team preview series sponsored by Boom Fantasy, the only choice for daily fantasy sports action. They have innovative games for the casual and hardcore fan. You can win up to 500 times your entry. Use Boom Fantasy. Download on the App Store or Google Play and use that promo code FTN to get a no sweat bonus up to $100. And today we're talking about a team that I am more bullish on than most, the Carolina Panthers. And when I need insight, I go, of course, to the Observer. And today we're talking to Alex Zietlow, who covers the Carolina Panthers for the Observer. He's going to give us a great inside scoop here coming out of OTAs, going into the preseason. We're real excited. Alex, I'm not going to bury the lead. Dave Canales comes over here. Bryce Young. Last year, there were high expectations. Obviously, it wasn't the season you hoped for, but I see optimism here and positivity with Bryce Young in year two. What say you?
Well, Mike, it's awesome that you see optimism. And at this point in the season, everyone in Panthers camp also sees optimism.
Good.
But then again, everyone around the league seems optimism at this point.
Yeah.
I've said this a couple of times. Good vibes spring eternal at this point in the year. And every team, Andy Dalton made a mention to this earlier this offseason, every team thinks that they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Everyone's relatively healthy. And with some like minor exceptions. So everything feels good in Carolina. One thing that, and I believe that we'll talk about this a little bit later, is the relationship between Dave Canales and Bryce Young is kind of under a microscope right now. And the only thing that's been extracted is good things. Dave obviously has a history of rejuvenating quarterbacks, whether that be Geno Smith in Seattle, whether that be Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. And while it's a bit unfair to say that Bryce Young needs rejuvenating at this point in his career, obviously he's going into his second year. He came into a situation that was broken last year. That was you can look at it a variety of different ways, whether it was the talent he had, who he was throwing to, whether it was the offensive line that struggled to protect him, or whether it was the coaching staff that kind of didn't seem to be on the same page throughout the whole year. He had a lot to kind of work through. And so there are great reasons for optimism when you lay everything out, when you kind of hear all the positivity that's blooming between Canales and Young. It's easy to see that. However, last year was my first year covering the NFL full time. And I bought into the hype a little too much when it came to the Panthers. I'm unafraid to say it, or I am afraid to say it, but I'm unafraid to own it anymore. I did have the Panthers winning the NFC South last year, which hurt. It hurt. And as a professional, I am not going to do that again this year.
That's very fair. I did put for my team preview, though, in terms of our FTN betting side, that I think those odds are too high for Carolina, because every year, 19 the past 20 years, at least one team in the NFL has gone from last to first. And I think that could be the Panthers this year. But Alex, if that's going to happen, it's going to start with the offensive line and the backfield. So talk to me here about the offensive line upgrades. And let's take a look at that backfield. Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders with question. Jonathon Brooks, when is he going to be healthy? When he is healthy, how does he fit in here in terms of the touch share? Talk about the offensive line and the backfield here heading into 2024.
Yeah, so starting in the backfield, I guess, I think it came to the surprise of a lot of Panthers fans when the Panthers was the first team to draft a running back in the 2024 NFL draft. And they took Jonathon Brooks, this guy who is coming off of major knee surgery. So I think that was kind of surprising, considering the fact that the running back room was kind of the only stable part of this offense last year. I mean, Chuba Hubbard really got going at the end of last year.
He was excellent.
Yep. He did a lot of really good things on an offensive line that struggled to both in pass protection and also in the run game. Chuba's explanation for that is, hey, I'm finally healthy for the first time in my NFL life. He told reporters last year, kind of surprised us, saying that he had double abductor surgery last year, leading into the 2023 season. And so he was saying, hey, I'm finally healthy. This is what I can do. This is who I can be. Miles Sanders was a running back who kind of struggled last year, but and that was only accentuated by the fact that the Panthers paid him really good in a time when the running back market wasn't like super good. Like Saquon Barkley had to struggle to get an extension. So, but outside of that, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the skill level, if you hear how the coaches talked about Miles Sanders, they were up on him as a solid backup. And so I say all that to say where Jonathon Brooks fits into all of this is still a relative unknown. They invested a lot in him by drafting him so high. Also, the plan is for him to be ready by training camp, which, as we know, is going to be at the end of July. He is still questionable. We did ask Dave if we should expect him to be ready 100% at training camp. And Dave did kind of hedge that a little bit, saying we're going to learn a little bit more as the weeks progress, but he still seemed bullish on the fact that Jonathon will play. So, and then of course the Panthers also go out and get Rashad Penny this offseason too. So the running back room is pretty full and it's pretty stacked. And I think that when you mix that with, as you were saying, this upgraded offensive line, whether that be Robert Hunt, whether that be Damian Lewis in the middle, whether that be moving Austin Corbett from the right guard position to center. Austin Corbett was really good last year as well when he wasn't hurt. Things are coming together in the Panthers' offense in terms of personnel, and which is positive. I mean, there are still questions still abound. Obviously, can Bryce Young use the entirety of the field when last year he couldn't really do that? And a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was getting so much pressure on the inside and the interior offensive line. He didn't have that much time to throw. But like you said, I mean, on paper, the Panthers made all the right moves this offseason when it comes to upgrading the offense. Now the question is, is Bryce Young the guy? And if so, can he maximize this upgrade? Can he show, hey, last year was a really difficult situation that not many quarterbacks could thrive in. This year, I can take that next step. That's the question, and we'll see what happens. We'll really learn what happens when the Jets come to town and the Panthers get to see another defense. But we'll also get another step when the pads get put on. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. OTA's time, everyone's feeling good.
Well, one of the areas I think that they did really upgrade was the wide receiver room. Yes. And I think part of the things that would help Bryce Young is having receivers who can separate and get open. Diontae Johnson comes over from Pittsburgh, and that is what Diontae Johnson does. He has quick, good burst off the line, can get open. You traded up to get Xavier Leggett, very explosive guy. Curious what you think he's going to do in year one. And of course, Adam Thielen, like I said, death taxes and Adam Thielen, always able to get open. There were players last year that I liked that didn't pan out. Jonathan Mingo, players like that. But talk about that wide receiver room as well as the tight end area as well. Tommy Treble, Ja'Tavion Sanders, how you think that's going to play out. Because a lot of times when you have a quarterback that's developing, the key is to get great supporting cast and great receivers to make it easier. And I think the Panthers did do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they did as well. I mean, like I said, everything on paper this has been a huge improvement. The interesting thing about Xavier Leggett, I was very much, and my partner Mike Kay, who you know as well, we were both very much like, there is no way the Panthers are trading into the first round. There is no way. There is no reasonable, rational reason for them getting up in the first round to take somebody. And the conventional wisdom said, just find a couple guys who have a first round grade for you and for your scouts and pray that someone falls into the second round and take them. Because the Panthers really had a lot of needs everywhere. They had needs at cornerback. They had needs at edge rusher in the future. And then of course, pretty much every offensive position needed to be addressed outside of quarterback and interior offensive line. So I remember when the Panthers traded up, I was like, yo, what the heck's going on? And then they get Leggett, and he was obviously the last pick of the first round, and they did so for a variety of reasons. Among them, they get that fifth year option for him, which means that if he does become the player that a lot of people expect him to be, they can hold on to him, which is very important to this new front office. But I think Leggett is going to be a really big deal in Carolina. And I think that he can get some I think that he can extend the field.
Yep.
Like, if you don't know anything about football, if you don't know anything about like how it's played, the thing that you would watch the Carolina Panthers offense and you would say, why aren't they throwing it deep?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why aren't they stretching the field? All of these other teams who have a competent offense are throwing it deep. Like, why aren't the Panthers doing that? And obviously it's not as simple as that. But like, if you really do want to boil it down, you need speed and you need scheme, obviously. And then you just need like an X factor, someone who can go up and get balls. DJ Chark kind of showed that a little bit. I know a lot of people in this market weren't super high on him, but he did show some deep playability, Mike. But I think Xavier can be that next level guy. He's huge. He's got comparisons to DK Metcalf, whatever. So I think he's going to be the centerpiece. And then, like you said, you got Adam Thielen in the slot. You got Diontae Johnson, who just adds a whole bunch of speed as well. He still has a chip on his shoulder for his unceremonious exit from Pittsburgh. This wide receiver room has come together pretty well. And then you got investment in the tight end position, which is also good with Tommy Tremble and Jatavian Sanders. So I feel like I'm just kind of rambling, and hopefully you don't mind me doing that. But I mean, like you said, I mean, these are all upgrades. How meaningful of upgrades they are might not pan out this year. They might pan out next year. But if there is going to be one guy who makes a splash immediately, I think it will be Xavier Leggett.
That's great to hear. And I agree with you. The part where I thought the season was going to be rough last year, Alex, was the New Orleans game, the second game, because that was such a winnable game. And I noticed the same issues there, that they just could, if they could get just one pass over the top there, they would have won that game, no problem. But again, I think Leggett, these are players who can help, who can create that opportunity. Great stuff, Alex. Last question. I will get you out of here. Really appreciate your time and the insight. The schedule and the defense. They have some defensive upgrades. They are just looking for good health this year because they really struggle with that. But here comes Jadeveon Clowney. Here comes some players who could definitely help, especially with the secondary. Talk to me. Your strength of schedule is pretty decent. You have some winnable games in the non-conference here. Giants, you have Giants, Cardinals. You do have the Chiefs at home. You have the Chargers, which is tough, but road matchups at the Bears, at the Raiders, Commanders. These are winnable games. Talk to me here about the defense and how you think that schedule is going to play out, because I think the offense has the playmakers. The question is, can the defense match it? If it stays healthy, I think it can.
Which is so interesting to say, because the only reliable part of this team last year was the defense. Like, the special teams was good, although Eddie Pinheiro did struggle with injuries at the end of the season. And Johnny Hecker, the punter, is obviously probably the guy on the team right now who has a chance at a gold jacket, at a chance for a Hall of Fame career when all is said and done. But that said, this defense last year was remarkable. And it was remarkable for a variety of reasons. Yes, there was an abundance of talent. You had Derek Brown, who led the league in in tackles among defensive linemen, and he's returning off of a huge extension. But then you had some guys who have left. You had Brian Burns, who went to the New York Giants. You had, Diontae Jackson, a veteran cornerback. He left as well. He got traded. So everyone kind of saw this happening. You knew that you were going to have to lose a little bit of defense. The offense was going to improve at the expense of the defense this offseason. You kind of knew that was going to happen. I don't mean to oversimplify things. I feel like I did that a little bit previously, but I'm going to kind of simplify them again. If JC Horn stays healthy, the secondary is in good shape.
Yep.
It just is. They're not super deep there, but they drafted someone. They went out and got Dane Jackson, who general manager Dan Morgan really likes, has done good things in Buffalo. This secondary is good. They got experience in safety position. Secondary is fine. The pass rush got elevated, assuming that Jadeveon Clowney can be healthy all year, assuming DJ Wanham, who's coming over from Minnesota, can be healthy all year. Jadeveon Clowney is a fantastic run defender. That's another thing that I think gets overlooked in his game. He's a part of defenses that are not only get great pressure on the quarterback, but also do a great job stifling the run. And so that works really well with Evero's system. And then you got Evero himself, this defensive coordinator, who's great, who's always in the mix for head coaching opportunities. So I think the defense will be good, assuming that everyone stays healthy, which according to last year, that wasn't the case. That didn't happen. And there were some issues there. But even with an injury-laden secondary, Evero still had some of the best defensive numbers that a defense did have last year. And on top of that, the Panthers finished, I think, 4th in total defense, aka like the amount of yards they allowed. Mm-hmm. And they didn't finish that well. And when it comes to total points, but that's because the offense just couldn't get anything going. The defense was on the field all the time, and they were turning the ball over on the wrong side of the 50-yard line all the time. So I think this defense will be good again this year. My questions are with the offense, which seems we're kind of flip-flopped in that perspective, Mike. Mm-hmm. And then when we're talking about the schedule, I mean, we can look and we can prognosticate all we want. By week 4, we're the teams that we thought that were going to be really good in the NFL this year might struggle. Mm-hmm. Who knows who the Jets are? You know what I'm saying? In the preseason, like I don't know. With Aaron Rodgers at the helm, who knows who they are? Who are the Raiders going to be with their new head coach? Are the Bears going to be as miserable as they were last year? I mean, it's really difficult to say. I think it is safe to say that the NFC South will still be relatively weak. And so your point about the Panthers maybe making a move up to that number 1 spot, that is a possibility. And I think that a lot of Carolina fans would love to hear you say that. But I still am there. We have about a week and a half before we submit our projections to the paper, like where me, Mike, and Scott all write our ideas for the records that the Panthers will have. And so I don't want to release that just yet because I'm still thinking over a couple games. But I don't see it. I don't see it where there's where they're number 1 in the NFC South. As much as Carolina fans hate to hear that, I don't think that's a possibility.
Alex, great stuff. And listen, all I'll tell you is this. I think they're in the mix. I think they will keep it interesting. And in my opinion, not yours, I'm going on record, I think they're going to win that opening game at New Orleans for sure. I think they make a statement right off the bat and go from there. Folks, Alex Zietlow, fantastic, on Twitter at AlexZietlow05. You have to follow him. Writes for the Carolina Panthers at the Charlotte Observer. Does an amazing work. Just gave us the most insight we've had on any team preview. So generous with your time. We appreciate it. Would love to check in, Alex, as we get closer to the season when you get to that Jets game, see how things are shaking out, because I do think health here, Canales, positive vibes. Like you said, defense that was very underrated because of the offense struggles. I think this team can be very, very good and is going to be in the mix here in the division. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate a few minutes.
Thanks, Mike.
The NFL Team Preview Series is sponsored by Boom Fantasy, your top choice for daily fantasy sports action. Boom Fantasy has the most innovative games that cater to both casual and hardcore fans. Win up to 500 times your entry only at Boom Fantasy. Download now on the App Store and Google Play. Use promo code FTN to get a no-sweat bonus up to $100.